Coming up on Hands on Tech, let's take a look at something rather nerdy, dual booting Windows 10 and Windows 11. Stay tuned.
This is TWIT.
Hello and welcome to Hands on Tech. I am Micah Sargent, and it is my duty, my joy, and my job to take your tech questions and answer them. So, by the way, if you have tech questions, get in touch. hot@twit.tv is how you get in touch with me. To take a look at today's question, let's see who wrote in. David has written in and has an interesting question that I think we're going to have to get a little nerdy with. David writes, "Hi, Micah." Hi, David. "I have a new HP desktop that came with Windows 11 Home. I put in a separate SSD to install Windows 10 to make a dual boot system. It goes through the normal setup, but when it restarts, it goes to recovery mode. Windows 11 boots fine, and I can choose which one to boot to. I know the Windows 10 USB is okay because I tried it on another PC and it worked fine as a dual boot with Windows 11 and 10. I even tried System File Checker and found nothing wrong. I know about the GPT and MBR boot system, as the HP system is GPT, as is the new drive, because it lets me install the setup files. It just crashes on the first reboot. Any help would be welcome." So, David, a little complicated, a lot going on here. So I looked into people hanging on to Windows 10 and people attempting to do the same thing as you and what was possibly at the root of this. And it's confusing, but it seems to be. It is almost certainly related to how your specific HP Windows PC handles Secure Boot and TPM in combination with Secure Boot, TPM, and Windows 10. Now, newer HP desktops that ship with Windows 11 have Secure Boot enabled and TPM 2.0, which is, of course, active by default. Windows 10 can work with these features, but the installation process sometimes does mess up on this first reboot because of how the firmware is actually handing off to the new OS. So what does that mean? It means that there's a process that kind of gets things rolling before we roll into going to Windows 11 and booting from there. Now, that's one issue, but there's also a chance that the HP BIOS is messing with the boot order. And so some HP systems will kind of reset or prioritize the Windows Boot Manager entry that's tied to the drive that it has the Windows installation that is the default, okay, or the original installation. So what does that mean? It means that like the HP system will go, I don't really care what you're asking me to do. I know who I am, and who I am is a Windows 11 machine on the drive that came with me. And so it's prioritizing that and not paying attention to the changes that you have made on top of it. So it can cause the Windows 10 setup to kind of lose its place after that first reboot. So what do we do? How do we fix this? Well, here are some things that different people did. Check your BIOS settings first. Now, I believe for your machine, you restart it and then you tap F10 upon reboots to get into the on reboot to get into the HP BIOS setup. Then we're going to look for some different things here. First, look for Secure Boot. If you find Secure Boot, try disabling it temporarily just during the installation of Windows 10, okay? You're not going to keep it that way, but during the setup and installation of Windows 10, try it. Then re-enable it afterward once you've got everything working. It's likely that this is all you're going to need to do, and from that point on, you'll be able to boot and get Windows 10 running, and then you can go from there, turn this back on. Then let's talk about boot order. Make sure that the SSD that you're installing Windows 10 on is actually listed and prioritized properly. Now, there are some HP BIOS versions that have both a UEFI boot order and an OS boot manager. So you need to make sure that it shows up in both of these places and shows up in the place where it's supposed to be. There's also in the BIOS settings something called legacy support. Turn this off. You want to stay in UEFI mode because both drives are GPT. So turning on that legacy or CSM mode is just going to cause more problems. You want to just kind of, we're trying to eliminate variables here, right? So let's get rid of the legacy support issue playing at it. Now, once you've done this, another thing that you can try is you can try disconnecting the Windows 11 drive while you're doing the Windows 10 install. Again, don't keep it this way, but at the initial, you can try this. It's a brute force method, but it does work. You unplug or disable in the BIOS the Windows 11 SSD, install Windows 10 on the second SSD as the only drive in the system, let it do the full setup, including that first reboot without the other drive present, and then once it's fully installed and you're at the desktop, you can shut down, you then reconnect the Windows 11 drive, and then use the BIOS boot menu, which is to access this F9 on most HP machines, to choose which OS to boot. Now, if you're going, I don't like this idea, I don't want to disconnect my Windows 11 drive, well, here's what you can do if you want both drives to be connected during the installation. When Windows 10 installer finishes copying files and says it's going to restart, don't let it reboot automatically. When the system restarts, then hit F9, real quick, which will bring up that boot menu, I believe, on your HP system, and then select the new SSD. It could just be, again, that Windows, or that the BIOS is going, I'm going to do this. And then it is, or you need to tell it, no, I don't want you to do this. I want you to go the other way. This episode of Hands on Tech is brought to you by Melissa, the trusted data quality expert since 1985. Bad data could be costing your business, but Melissa has specialized in making data clean, accurate, and of peak quality for 41 years, now combining expertise with cutting-edge AI. Here is what that means for your business. You get address verification, which validates addresses globally in real time, reducing failed deliveries. You get mobile identity verification, which matches customers to mobile numbers, cuts fraud, and opens SMS channels. You get change of address information, keeping customers connected automatically when they move, and AI-powered deduplication. On average, a database contains 8 to 10% duplicate records. Melissa's powerful matchup technology can identify what is called non-exact matching duplicate records. So those ones that would be hard to find automatically, it'll take care of that. You also get customer data intelligence, where you can enrich records with demographic, geographic, psychographic, firmographic, and property info for more intelligent targeting. Plus the new Melissa Alert service, which monitors and automatically updates your customer data for moves, address changes, property transactions, hazard risks, and more. And clean data is going to lead to better marketing ROI, higher customer lifetime value, and AI that actually works as intended. Because if you're using AI for personalization or predictive analytics, you don't want garbage data. Why? Because garbage data means garbage results. Melissa ensures your AI learns from accurate information. When it comes to data, Melissa's got you covered. For example, eToro, the social investing platform with 23 million users, uses Melissa for identity verification. Their business analyst says, we find electronic verification is the way to go because it makes the user's life easier. Users register faster and can start using our platform right away. Whether you're a small business just getting started or an enterprise managing millions of records, Melissa scales with you. Melissa has easy-to-use apps for Salesforce, Dynamics CRM, Shopify, Stripe, Microsoft Office, Google Docs, and more. Melissa's APIs integrate seamlessly into your existing workflows or custom builds, and Melissa's solutions and services are GDPR and CCPA compliant, FedRAMP and ISO 27001 certified, and meet SOC 2 and HIPAA high-trust standards for information security management. So, get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. That's melissa.com/twit. Once you've done all of this, your troubleshooting steps to get it installed, let's say now you've got it installed. Windows 10 is installed. It's all working. Yeah, Burke, I agree with you. Burke in the chat says, having a hard drive for each OS is ideal, but it can get really messy. And in your case, it has. But let's talk about what we need to do afterwards. So again, you got Windows 10 installed, and what you're probably finding is that the system is just going to boot to one OS or the other without giving you a choice. If you are having that issue, there's an app. It's called Easy BCD. It's free for personal use. And then you can set it up to give you a proper dual boot menu, meaning that you can then choose how to boot. You can also use the BCD edit command if you are in the command prompt as an admin. Doing so will let you add boot entries. But if all of these words that I'm using are sounding like whoa to you, Easy BCD is going to make it a lot more user-friendly, a lot easier to get things set up, a lot easier to understand what you're doing. That said, there's also another option, which is just relying on that F9 boot menu. So every time you go to boot, it is, giving you the way to, by hitting F9, the ability to choose. It is the cleanest approach because the boot managers are existent on both drives, and that means that you're not worried about all this other stuff kind of getting in the way. But it does require you to then always be there to go, ooh, F9, F9. And I don't think that's that ideal. So Easy BCD, I think, is the choice for you. Now, I would be remiss if I did not mention something very important for you to understand, which is that, well, I'll tell you that in just a moment. All right. So we have Wayne writing in, or not Wayne, excuse me. We have David writing in talking about dual booting. We've kind of gone through the process of what's required to dual boot Windows 10 and Windows 11, have the choice between the two, what issues were involved with the installation. But with that out of the way, the thing that I want to remind you is that Microsoft did end support for Windows 10. That was in October of 2025. So, we're coming up on at least a year. This year will be a year of Windows 10 official support coming to a close. And so with that, you're not getting security updates, David. It's not happening unless you are paying for extended security updates. So if you're dual booting Windows 10 for a specific application, or if there's a compatibility layer that you need, just know that when you're doing this, you are potentially putting yourself and your data at risk, particularly if you're browsing the web. So if this is just about having a specific app, and that's why you need Windows 10, then it might be worth checking out if that app has any updates or a compatibility mode that would make it possible to run on Windows 11. If this is just because you don't want to use Windows 11 because it's annoying or whatever, be mindful of the fact that you are putting yourself at risk due to Microsoft no longer providing to most users of the Windows 10, of the Windows 10 operating system, not providing security updates anymore. And even with the extended security updates, those aren't going to last forever. So it may be worth moving along if you can. If you can't, then I hope, David, that this answered your question. And as I always say, I would love to hear from you. Let me know if these solutions work for you. You can reach us, hot@twit.tv, with your update. But that, folks, is our very nerdy look at dual booting Windows 10 and Windows 11 on a machine that has two different SSDs with the operating systems installed. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Hands on Tech. I, Micah Sargent, will be back next week with another episode. Bye-bye.